It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at a small card game called Campy Creatures, in which all the players are going to be using different monsters from popular culture, basically, like werewolves and vampires and kaijus, things like that, in order to capture specific mortals that you are taking over. And you want the ones that score you points, avoid the ones that are bad for you, that might fight back, and then walk away with the highest amount of points. It's a simultaneous selection style game. Let me give you a look at how it works. We'll come on back. I'll tell you if I think it's a good one. The game is going to be played over 3 rounds. At the end of each round, the players are going to score for all of the mortals they have collected, and then they will set up the game again, play another round, and then a third. The highest score at the end of all 3 rounds is, of course, the winner of the game. Everyone gets one of these decks of cards of creatures, and they are all identical, and they look sort of like this. You are going to have cards that have different values between 0 and 8. They are going to have, of course, the beautiful artwork there, and then possibly a special action that might happen before the mortals are taken or while the mortals are being taken. All right, so that's what they look like. Everyone has one set. I'll just leave these randomized for now to help my my little explanation here, and then we are ready to begin. So each turn of the game, you are going to shuffle up the mortals, of course, to begin the round, and you're going to flip over as many as there are players at the table. And so, in this case, I'm going to flip over 4. This is quite a good flip. And so, everybody's going to pick a card. Everyone picks one, and then they're all revealed simultaneously. So, this character here picked the kaiju, which is the biggest one. It has no power because it is the biggest one. This player played the mummy. This player also played a mummy, and this player played the swamp creature. First thing we do is we check for any character that triggers before the grab. And the mummy in this case, in fact, does do that. The mummy says that it captures immediately if a kaiju is in play. Great. So this player and this player both just made out like bandits because someone played a kaiju. Now, these two players, however, are tied right now. So we're going to have to go to a tiebreaker, which is what the Clash-O-meter over here is for. We're going to look, this player is that color, this player is that color, this player, that symbol is above the other, so they're going to break the tie in their favor, and they would take first. They're going to take one of the damsels here, which is 6 victory points. They are done. This player would then take the other damsel. That's what they want, and they're done. And then we go to the regular number split here, with the kaiju being the 8. It has no power. It could take the cosmonaut, which is 4 victory points, or it could take 1 teenager. There are some cards in the deck that are going to have 1, 2, or 3 teenagers, and at the end of the round, whoever has the most teenagers gets 7 points. Whoever has the second most teenagers gets 4 points. This is only 1 teenager, so the kaiju player is just going to take the cosmonaut there, and they're done. And then this final player here, the swamp creature, has a power that says you give the mortal you capture to another player. This character probably would not have played that when all the ones out here were good. So, they would have to give this away, but again, they would not have done that. The reason the swamp creature exists, of course, is because there's a bunch of bad cards as well. So let's find some bad ones here. We have the deep sea diver is -1, and we have the hunter here who is -3, and we even have the engineer, which is a little bit tricky. The engineer is going to score, each one will score either -2 points or +3 points, depending on how many you have. So if I have a single one, that's bad. But if I'm able to capture another one, and now have an even number of them, that's 3 points and 6 points, which is great. If I get yet another one, that's bad again. Now I'm looking at -6, and so on. And the cards, as you can see here, are simply that. Teenagers, archaeologists, several numbers of teenagers, and some of these would have been removed depending on the number of players. That's basically it. This continues with you discarding your monster after you used it. If there was a clash, which in this case there was, whoever wins simply drops to the very bottom of the Clash-O-meter here, and we deal out a new lineup of mortals, and we play a new creature, go through the powers. That's it. End of the round, which is when you can no longer refill the line with the mortals. Then you score up with your little character here on the score track, and you give back all the mortals. They get reshuffled. You pick up all your creatures again, and we do it again. We do that 3 times. So the last thing for us to look at here is really just what are these creatures? What do they do? So let's take a look at that. Let's move these out of the way, and let's just take a look at one of these sets. And we'll go through these numerically, all right? So the Kaiju, which you already saw, is the number 8, has no power. It's simply the strongest, and it will pick first unless some trickery happens. The number 7 here being the Beast. And the Beast says that you score 3 victory points if it's still in your hand at the end of the round. If you never played it, if no one ever forced you to discard it, that's 3 victory points. The Vampire here will negate the ability of the creature to your left. So the Vampire happens before resolution of actually taking the mortals, and you'll negate somebody else's power. And then after that, we are looking at the 5, which is the Werewolf, and it says you force the player to your right to discard a creature from their hand, okay? Which is how you could force someone to possibly discard cards they were hoping to keep. Some of these monsters they were hoping to keep. The number 4 is the Invader, the alien there, and the alien says that you capture 2 mortals if possible. If when your number comes up, there are 2 mortals at least, you get 2 of them. The number 3 is the Mummy. You saw the Mummy already in action. It triggers and captures first, capture immediately, if someone played a Kaiju. The number 2 is the Invisible Man, which says you may discard a mortal you have taken, you have already captured, and so this one helps get away from those bad, like the Hunter and the Diver, some of the bad ones. The Swamp Creature you saw, whatever you capture you give to someone else, and then the Blob has a power that triggers before the split, and it lets you, if you play the Blob after you've seen what everybody else has done, you get to discard another card from your hand and add the value to the Blob, which is nothing. The power on the new card does not trigger, just the value. So it lets you figure out sort of where you want to end up in the lineup when you want to take your action. And that's basically it. That's how the game works. That should give you a good idea of everything happening and sort of the flow of the game. Highest score wins, of course. So let's go back up top and let me tell you what I thought about Campy creatures. All right, so there you have it. Let's take a look at some talking points here. Starting with thematic ties, I think the game has a really cool theme. I enjoy the idea of all the players being, using these monsters to end up taking the right cards, collecting the correct, combination of cards, avoiding the bad ones, all of that. So I like the theme here. I like the monster themes anyway, and I think it's utilized in a pretty neat way in this game. The aesthetics are by far the most impressive thing about this game. They are fantastic. The graphic design is very good, but the artwork in the game is phenomenal. Some of the best artwork I've seen in a while. And it's highly stylized, but also really, really functional. And I'm a big fan of it. So from that front, huge thumbs up for the aesthetics of the game. Replayability is all right. I think this is the kind of game that once you play a lot with the same kind of group, you're going to start getting into that doublethink scenario where you are wondering, is this player going to play the Kaiju, so should I play the Mummy? That is sort of a counteract, it sort of counteracts the Kaiju, it lets me go first. You start getting into some of that. The card types, though, are largely, you're going to get to see the same things over and over and over, and so I don't know if the replayability is particularly high. In fact, I found playing 3 rounds in the game, to play a full game is 3 rounds, I found that to be maybe just a couple of minutes longer than I wish it was. It's not problematic, really, but it's not the kind of game I would play twice in a row, for example. Game length, as I said, is just a tad long for me. And I don't like the fact that every single round is the exact same. I wish there was something new in the second round and something new in the third. Maybe if there was a new mortal that they would, or a couple of new cards that they would introduce into the deck, that would be really neat. Like, you know, the monsters have gone rampaging, so now for the second round, some military shows up and you shuffle them into the Mortals deck. And then for the third round, a superhero shows up and you got to deal with that. And those could have special powers. And so I wish that there was an evolution there, but there is not. The ease of play is great. I find the abilities in the game to be really nice and straightforward. The tiebreaker idea is very clean. It's well implemented. So the ease of play here is lovely, very nicely done. And then lastly, tactics and strategy and the luck in the game, of course. There's certainly some amount of luck with the double think, but the tactics are not bad. They are there, and depending on what comes up, you can have a spread of mortals that's all good. And so you can get away probably on that turn with playing some of the lower numbers for acquiring the cards. Whereas sometimes you'll have a really bad spread with maybe one good card. So what, does everybody play the kaiju? That's not going to work out well for everybody. It's interesting, you know, the tactics and the response and the I know that you know sort of situations are neat. So it's not strategically very deep, but there's some fun tactics in here, and I enjoyed the game. So those are some of my thoughts on the game. Definitely a looker, that's the main thing, and the gameplay is very pleasant. It's straightforward. It has a theme that I think is going to appeal to a lot of people, certainly does to me. And so I don't really have anything particularly bad to say about this one, except that I find the design to be very derivative of many other games. The game has very little originality. Now, everything it does, I think it does really well, and I enjoy that very much about it, but overall, this is the kind of thing we've seen before a dozen times, you know. Everybody plays the cards simultaneously, you reveal them, and then they trigger grabbing some stuff from the center. In this case, the monster thing works really well, but it's been seen. However, if you don't have any of this style of game and you're looking for one, then I do think this is a good one. And this is one that I very much enjoy in that genre, which is, to be honest, not even the kind of thing I normally gravitate towards. I don't tend to enjoy simultaneous selection games. In this one, I don't mind it because it's light, it moves along at a nice clip, the artwork is fantastic, and the theme is neat. So there you have it. I'm going to give this one a seal of approval. That is Campy Creatures. Check it out.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.